and opinions expressed by callers, guests, and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of the Black Talk Radio Network and Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium.
Dinar would have had serious consequences for the world financial system, but may also have empowered the people of Africa, something black activists say the US wants to avoid at all costs.
We're slicing cake. We're slicing cake. We're slicing cake.
Say the US wants to avoid at all costs.
We're slicing cake.
Say the US wants to avoid at all costs.
We're slicing.
Gaddafi didn't give up. In the months leading up to the military intervention, he called on African and Muslim nations to join together to create this new currency that would rival the dollar and euro. They would sell oil and other resources around the world only for gold dinars. It's an idea that would shift the economic balance of the world. Countries' wealth would depend on how much gold they have, not how many dollars they trade. And Libya has 144 tons of gold.
Good afternoon and welcome to Thando Radio Show right here on the Black Talk Radio Network. My name is Scotty Reed. I'm broadcasting from behind these enemy lines that I call USA Inc. I am sitting in for Brother Dave today. I'll be going over what's in the news that he has picked out for you, and then Brother Braggs will be taking over the rest of the broadcast. There was a last minute thing that Brother Dave has to take care of some things concerning the event that'll be going down in Dallas that he talked about on yesterday's program. So please excuse me as I try to fill in for Brother Dave today. Make sure that if you value independent media, and there is such a need for independent media with so much fake news coming at you from these corporations who then want to tell you these alternative outlets that you may turn to for some news is the fake news, and that they want to target us and take us offline. If it is important to you what we do here through the Black Talk Radio Network, which of course is managed by the nonprofit Black Talk Media Project, please make a donation today by going to blacktalkmediaproject.org. We have some black radio stations, Matter t-shirts, cotton tees, very soft, very comfortable, that you will be given as a thank you in exchange for your tax-deductible gift. We are a legitimate nonprofit. We aren't a fake nonprofit. We're a legitimate nonprofit registered here in the state of North Carolina, and according to the IRS website, any kind of gift or monetary donations to our organization is tax deductible. Also, I just added some new members to btrcommunity.com. Welcome to those new members. We look forward to your participation and you sharing what's on your mind, what's important to you, any events that you have coming up that you would like to share with the community. Thank you for joining. If you would like to join BTR Community, which is the online social media network that has been set up for the listeners of Black Talk Radio Network, just go to btrcommunity.com. We do not make any kind of money to maintain the website by showing you ads on that social media network. It is an ad-free network, unless it is, of course, something that the members themselves are promoting, but it's an ad-free network, and you can get a membership to the network for as low as $24 a year. That's just $2 a month. If you don't want to do $24 a year, you can do $5 a month, or you could do $1 a week. And the community is growing. It's not growing as fast as I expected it to grow, considering how many people said we need our own this or we need our own that. But that just tells me those who have joined are truly committed into being a part of something that they wanted established. So we thank those people for their small contribution. That does help not only with maintaining the social media platform, but also with the overall media operations of the North Carolina-based nonprofit Black Talk Media Project. So again, my name is Scotty Reed. I'm filling in for Dave. Today we'll be joined in just a bit by Brother Braggs. As he stated yesterday, he has an event that is coming up in Dallas this weekend, and so he needs to do some things to prepare for that. That came up unexpectedly, so that's what he's taking care of. But, of course, he wants you to know that he is with us always. All right, so he did pick some things, some news items to share with you for what's in the news section or segment of the program. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into those news articles that he shared in BTR community on the profile for the Thando radio show. The first article comes from Strategic Culture. U.S. main target in Syria is Iran. ISIS comes second. And he also reported some news yesterday about the Israelis being fired upon by the Syrian army utilizing their Russian surface-to-air missile defense system. And so this kind of plays into that. Again, the United States military is in Syria in violation of international law. They do not have a UN Security Council resolution, although I don't, subscribe any kind of authority to the UN Security Council. But in terms of international law and the way they got it set up, they do not have any kind of mandate or authorization from the UN Security Council. But of course they would not, because guess who has a permanent seat on the Security Council? That's right, the Russians. So they probably knew that they were not going to get an authorization from the UN Security Council. So they just going up in there, just doing what they want with no regards to international law. And they say they going in there to defeat so-called ISIS. But how you going in to defeat ISIS that if you're not directly funding and arming ISIS, then your strategic partners in the region, like Yemen, like Saudi Arabia, like some of the other Gulf states, are funding ISIS. So again, people, it is important to read. It is important to consider these things from all points of view. Do not become one of those nationalistic gang members just simply because you live behind these enemy lines. These people don't care about the working people of this nation. They don't care. All they care about is dominating the planet and taking away the self-determination of other nations who primarily are non-white and non-Christians. So let me pull up the article and share a little bit from the article. Let me close some of these other windows. It says the common thread running through the two major hotspots in the Middle East today, the conflicts in Syria and Libya, is undoubtedly the threat to international security from the extremist groups operating in those theaters. Again, I will remind you who turned over Libya to those terrorists, those extremist groups, who worked with the extremist groups to overthrow the secular government of Muammar Gaddafi, who that country since 2005 was an official ally, signed agreements with the United States, of the United States. But this is what the Obama administration thinks of their allies in the so-called war on terror, that they will work with terrorists to overthrow this country simply because, as the opening music from our brother Sincere Nakware that you hear every time Thando radio show comes on air, that Gaddafi was talking to the Muslim nations as well as African nations who control a lot of the resources and saying to the rest of the world, we're no longer taking your monopoly funny money from the Federal Reserve, also known as the U.S. dollar. We want gold for our resources. That's the reason they went in there and overthrew Libya. And now they talking about going right back in there to clean up the problem that they created. This is what is known as the Hegelian dialect. This is where you create the problem, then you come in like you got the solution without acknowledging you the one that created the problem in the first place, and that you stand to profit from providing the solution that is not really going to be the type of solution that will be justice. It's going to be the type of solution where they benefit. So that's that first story. The U.S. main target in Syria is really Iran, who is in the country by the invitation of the Syrian government. It, again, is the United States, who is now illegally occupying Syria. All right. So I wouldn't call it occupying, but has invaded Syria. All right. The next story comes to you from Reuters.com, and it says an exclusive: Tillerson plans to skip the NATO meeting and visit Russia in April, the story says. And so I can already imagine, as I did a program for Black Talk Radio News yesterday, which we also streamed that live through video, where I was talking about that sham of a hearing, a congressional hearing, where you had the FBI and the NSA pushing this line that the Russians hacked the elections, talking about the DNC servers. And neither one of those organizations, not a single intelligence organization, the 17 intelligence organizations that they say are concluded that Russia hacked the DNC servers. How you going to make that determination, as I pointed out yesterday, and you have not examined the crime scene? How you going to say somebody did something and you ain't never even looked at the server? But I'm sure some people will use this and say, see, this is proof. This is proof that this white supremacist is working with those white supremacists. If you are a non-white person in this country, if you don't benefit from white supremacy, I don't see how you got a dog in this fight. Anyway, it goes on to say, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson plans to skip a meeting with NATO foreign ministers next month in order to stay home for a visit by China's president, and will go to Russia later in April, U.S. officials said on Monday, disclosing an itinerary that allies may see as giving Moscow priority over them. Tillerson intends to miss what would have been his first meeting of the 28 NATO allies on April the 5th in Brussels so that he can attend President Donald Trump's expected April 6 and 7 talks with China President Xi Jinping at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, four current and former U.S. officials said. Skipping the NATO meeting and visiting Moscow could risk feeding a perception that Trump may be putting U.S. dealings with big powers first while leaving waiting those smaller nations that depend on Washington for security, two former U.S. officials said. You know what? If you can't provide your own security, then you are not a sovereign nation. That's what I got to say about that. If you depending on other people to secure what is yours, then guess what? It don't belong to you. It belongs to those who are coming in and securing those resources. All right, the next story. But that's just my opinion. Let's see. We have some financial news from the tradingfloor.com why the 2017 French election could trigger. Give me just a moment. I'll go ahead and they have some video for this. I'll go ahead and cue that up and let you listen to that. But the title is Why the 27 French Election Could Trigger a Market Drop. This also goes into a running conversation that myself and Dave have had both on air and off air about the stock market actually being a gamble. You know, anybody that tells you that you are not gambling when you invest money in the stock market is lying to you. okay? When all of these external forces can cause the stock market to drop and you're not aware of everything that's going on in the world, how is that not gambling? All gambling means is you're taking a risk. You're taking a risk hoping for a positive gain. That's the definition of gambling, okay? And so now they're saying that whoever the French elect to be the president of their country could cause the stock market to drop. Okay, so, I mean, I'm not telling people not to invest in the stock market. I've made money off the stock market through a 401k when I had a corporate plantation job, okay? But I took courses on that, and it was no long-term thing. You know, when I was in the black, I took my money back, okay? Plus that what I had gained, So I'm not even engaged in the stock market right now because I realized that most of those 500 what they call Fortune 500 companies are invested in modern day slavery, utilizing prison slave labor. And of course, we know the private prison companies are some of the most highest stock that you will find right now on the stock market as the Trump administration gets ready to lock up a whole bunch of people. All right, so let me go ahead and run this video again. This is from tradingfloor.com. And this is Christopher Dembick, head of macro analysis at Saxo Bank.
Don't pay so much attention about the French presidential election. It doesn't have a strong influence.
Never mind. I did not realize it was in French. And although we have people who tune in from France, they speak English. The majority of our listeners do not understand French. So I'll just read. In 1981, the French stock market dipped in fears over Francois Francis Mitterrand's presidency win, and the same could happen again, says Saxo Bank's head of macro analysis, Christopher Dembick. In the 30 days following the first round in the 1981 election, the French stock market dropped by over 20% as a result of concerns about the economic policies of Mitterrand, who eventually became president from 1981 to 1995. Dembick says that if Marine Le Pen, who has an anti-Eurozone stance, wins, the same steep dive could happen to the CAC 40 by 20% after the election. The first round of voting is on April the 23rd, and the second round is on May the 7th. Now, again, let me just say, they're talking about the French stock market, right? So you're going to say, well, what does that have to do with the American stock market? That all of these stocks are interconnected. We're dealing with multinational, international companies. If something happens in one area of the world, it is going to have a ripple effect on all the other global world financial markets, all right? Just like how the banks here in the United States, through their fraudulent mortgage schemes, they'd engaged in so much fraud, those banks on Wall Street almost brought down the entire global economy. So just know, if you're going to gamble in the stock market, that is what you're doing. You are gambling. You may come out on top. You may lose everything you invest. So just know that going in. All right, so the next story. We have the Kurd says Pentagon. This is from SputnikNews.com. Kurds say Pentagon plans to send 1,000 troops to Syria in the coming weeks. A representative of the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, an alliance made up of Kurdish and Arab militias, same Arab militias they used to overthrow Libya, murder Gaddafi, and slaughter all them Africans and throw them in the mass graves, has confirmed that the Pentagon is planning to deploy an additional 1,000 U.S. ground troops to Syria to assist the SDF in the upcoming operation aimed at, quote-unquote, liberating Raqqa, the de facto capital of Daesh Caliphate. Daesh, I think that's how you pronounce it, is a derogatory term that Arabs use to describe the terrorists that are being funded by the West. Every 2 days and the Middle East as well, the Western allied Arab countries. Every 2 days, the U.S. deploys a large amount of weapons, primarily heavy armaments, to the region. They have sent tanks, armored vehicles, missiles, sniper rifles, mortar launchers, and other types of weaponry, the source who spoke on condition of anonymity told Sputnik Turkey. In addition, the United States has told us that a decision was made to send an additional 1,000 U.S. troops to take part in the Raqqa operation. All right, so according to unconfirmed reports, this deployment is likely to take place in the coming weeks. U.S. service personnel are expected to serve in a training, advisory, and assistance capacity during the anti-Daesh campaign on one of the last militant strongholds across the Middle East. They will not take part in combat, at least initially. Look, this is how they got us, or I should say, yeah, because they drafted our people, but this is how they got us into Vietnam. This is why Muhammad Ali refused to go. Okay, he said, you treating me like crap right here, but you want me to draft me and send me to Vietnam to kill 9 white people for a fake war that you started, And no, he didn't say it was a fake war. At that time, we did not know that the United States sabotaged or attacked one of its own naval vessels and then blamed it on the Vietnamese, who they was calling the Viet Cong, just so that they can get Americans to support them deploying all of these troops into Vietnam. Oh, first they sent advisors. I think it was Kennedy who got us in there first. First they just sent advisors and they just going to advise and they not going to be partaking in combat or any of that sort of thing. So again, if you're in the military, I feel for you. I have always talked about my role in helping them to spread white supremacy globally, unbeknownst to me, because I was very ignorant about how the system worked, the global system worked at the time. And so I do regret my service. Did I learn some things? Did it shape me to be the person I am today? Yes, it did play a role into that. It did open up my eyes to how the system worked. But at the same time, I participated in the slaughter of tens of thousands of non-white people based on lies. All right, so let me go to the next story. The next story is from Russia Insider. Too much affordable health care, not enough iPhones. Analysis slam quality of life in Russia. Living in Russia is the equivalent of voluntarily submerging yourself in a grain silo full of poisonous spiders, according to a gentleman at Forbes who read a website. Kenneth Raposa, who covers business and investing in emerging markets for Forbes, had this to say about the appalling quality of life in Russia. When it comes to overall quality of life, Russia ranks lower than all of the big emerging markets. Even Mexico, with its corruption and drug lords, does better. According to the big data costs of living number crunchers at Numbeo, Russia's biggest problems are weather, Moscow traffic that makes the 405 in Los Angeles and the marginal in Sao Paulo seem tame, outrageous real estate prices in city centers, and pollution. We forwarded this article to one of our wisest contributors and also a longtime resident of Moscow. He was not particularly impressed. These are the propaganda wars, people. You're going to see a whole lot of stuff coming from all different sectors of U.S. media to keep pushing this neo-McCarthyism that we see. Hey, whatever rolls Raposa's boat. Apparently, he hasn't lived here. Sure, the weather can be a challenge for those expecting the Florida Keys, but it is what it is and has been so for millennia. certainly the plethora of choices existing in the real retail world is less in Russia, especially today. But what defines his take on quality of life? Healthcare? Okay, pay for a 2-week hospital stay with all the cutting and stitching with anesthesia, and my guess is that Russia comes out way ahead of even Obama plus Trump care and whatever insurance you pay premiums on. No mention on how the quality of life is lived on credit, i.e. debt. That would really be a sobering wake-up comparison. Fortunately, aside from small cap debt scams for the working stiff, in Russia there is far less exposure to living on credit cards and such. Also, don't forget that most average Russians receive their net salary. Everything has been done. No anxiety come April the 15th and paying H&R Block or some CPA to sort through a labyrinth IRS epics to ensure your house isn't seized. Pollution? What pollution? I'm a smoker. It all feels good. Traffic jams, I don't get them except when I choose to drive somewhere, as public transport in Russia is pretty efficient and less expensive than the New York subway by far. So, I mean, it goes on, and it's just talking about the fallacies of these articles talking about quality of life. Just because somebody don't have access to all of these material goods like iPhones or whatever the latest gadget is or whatever the latest fad is, that doesn't really have any bearing on their quality of life. Things like access of food, access to medicine, affordable housing, things of those nature is what really you should be judging a country on, its quality of life. And again, going back to Libya, before the United States and its terrorist allies destroyed the country, it has some of the highest standard of living or quality of life in Africa and was helping to spread that quality of life across Africa. But no, we can't have all these non-white people enjoying, a high quality of life. They might live longer, and we don't want that. All right, so next story. The next story, hundreds of UK troops sent to Estonia to face off against Putin. So I kind of talked about this yesterday. Give me just a second. Seems like an article wants to start. Yeah, this is a video. Let me go ahead and run this video. Says UK soldiers receiving a salute as troops arrive at the Amari Air Base 25 miles southwest of Tallinn. British troops arrive in Estonia as part of a major NATO mission in the Baltic region. Around 120 soldiers from the 5th Battalion, the Rifles landed at the Amari Air Base on March 17th. They were welcomed by Estonians Defense Minister Margis Takashini. I can't pronounce that. In the face of an increasingly assertive Russia, NATO is stepping up its commitment to collective defense. That's from some British defense secretary. British troops will play a leading role in Estonia and support our U.S. allies in Poland as part of wider effects to defend NATO. That's the Defense Secretary, Sir Michael Fallon. Let's see, it goes on to say 800 British troops are due to be stationed in Estonia. So this is everything that Brother Dave has been telling us for quite some time about the march towards World War III, which could be Nuclear War I. And ask yourself this question: how many countries has Russia invaded? How many countries is Russia bombing right now? I'm not talking about them terrorists in Syria, but how many nations are they bombing? How many have they invaded? Okay, so who is doing all the invading and bombing all over the world? Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it North Korea? Is it South Africa? Come on. Who is spreading all this violence? What did not Malcolm X, but Martin Luther King Jr. tell us? And when he was talking about the war in Vietnam, He said the United States is the greatest purveyor of violence on the planet. I may be paraphrasing what he said. And because the UK has most favored status, and I learned that going back to, I was doing some research on Andrew Jackson, the racist slaver, who was a former president of the United States when it was still a republic and not a corporation. But that's who Trump seems to admire most. But he bestowed that most favored nation status on England, their former colonizers and whatnot. And so anyway, there's a whole lot more we could discuss. You know, is America really free of the British crown? A lot of people would point you to some evidence that says no. Okay. But it's just interesting that all this is coming to you from the independent.co.uk, where they make all of this media, all right, Western news media, to shape your perceptions about what's really going on so that they could justify their geopolitical war moves being made on the global chessboard. All right, so I'm just saying, be careful, be aware of what's going on, and like Dave always tell you, never scared, be prepared. Next story. This is a story that comes to you from Paul Craig Roberts. I actually shared a story from him earlier today where he was talking about the corporate media is losing the trust of the masses, and that's why there's this big attack on non-traditional or independent media, such as what we bring you here through the Black Talk Radio Network. This is an article that was published March the 20th, The Collapse of Trust in the West, by Paul Craig Roberts. He says, just as President Putin has stated that governments and media in the West have destroyed Russia's trust in the West, the governments and media in the West have destroyed the trust of their citizens, who have been transformed into serfs to whom government no longer is accountable. I have stressed in many columns that the absence of trust between nuclear powers is a great threat to all life on Earth. That's why I said yesterday on my broadcast that woman, I can't remember her name right now. It is in the archives, but she was saying that Russia has committed an act of war against the United States. Again, none of these intelligence agencies, not the FBI, nobody has examined the DNC servers to even confirm that there was a hack of DNC servers. The information that was coming out early on and from WikiLeaks themselves said it was a leak. And I can't say for certain that dead DNC staffer that they found dead in the streets said he was a victim of a robbery. I don't know if he was the one who leaked it to WikiLeaks, but they said it was an inside job. It wasn't no Russians. But again, this is why I said yesterday, this kind of talk is dangerous, because they not going to send their children off over there to get killed or to kill other people. No, they going to send your children. They going to try to send my children, but they ain't getting mine. Okay. So, but anyway, it goes on to say, yet the Western governments and their media continue to work 24/7 to worsen relations between the U.S. and Russia and the U.S. and China. Those of us who warn of the possible consequences are put on lists of Russian dupes and purveyors of fake news. These lists show the desperation behind the orchestrated Russian threat. A $1,000 billion annual military security budget is at stake, along with the American financial and political hedge money. This is something I talked about also yesterday when I said, why did you have neocons like John McCain and his girlfriend, Lindsey Graham, out of South Carolina, back Hillary Clinton? All right, those are two Republicans. What Republicans are backing a Democrat? What's going on here? You know, but those two are linked to the military-industrial complex, just like Hillary Clinton. And so, therefore, that's why. Why was these two neocons, neoconservatives, pushing for those sham hearings yesterday to try to say that Russia undermined the U.S. elections? Why? Because it benefits them and those who pay them under the table and help get them elected, it benefits the military-industrial complex, the stockholders in war. That's why. They want a war, people. They want another Cold War. They want to keep taking your money that they call in taxes to transfer your wealth into the pockets of these military industrialists. That's all. So they still not only stealing your money, but now they don't care about stealing your children's lives. And I'm talking to white people right now that may be listening. We know y'all listen, but I'm talking to y'all. This is why American males are going to be on the endangered species list. Y'all can pretend like these people care about y'all because they give you a bunch of white supremacist propaganda, which instills fake white pride into you. But guess what? Your birth rates are now below your death rate, and war is the reason why. So you can buy into all of this patriotism and watch these CIA, Defense Department produce war movies from Hollywood all you want to. All you doing is being led straight to your own grave. All right. You are endangered species, American white male. All right. Let's go on to the next story. Trump is a shock and why Europe seeks new Asian partners. Trump is a shock because the United States has always been a global leader of free trade since World War II and the number one target for German exports. To become economically less dependent on the U.S., Europe wants to cooperate more closely with Asian companies, a newspaper wrote. That's from Sputnik News if you want to check that out. Again, these are posted in BTR community on David W. Thando radio show profile. South Korea, this comes to you from dunrenard.wordpress.com, Fukushima 311 watchdogs. South Korea expanded Japanese fish ban over Fukushima contamination. South Korea on Friday expanded its ban on Japanese fisheries products over concerns of contamination from the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The government in Seoul accuses Japan of not providing enough information on the crisis. Consumption of fish products in South Korea has dropped sharply in recent weeks as concerns grow. I have not heard of any such concerns being issued by the Federal Drug Administration here in the United States. Perhaps they don't care if you, eat or consume this contaminated fish from Japan because, their relations with Japan is more important than your health. All right, let me see. Next story. Russian military advisors were operating in the area targeted by Israeli airstrikes. This is a story that was reported on yesterday's program. It says an interesting scoop from Al Masdar News. Military sources say that Russian advisors embedded with the Syrian army were operating only a few kilometers away from one of the Israeli airstrikes on Friday morning in western Palmyra. Again, like the Americans, the Israelis don't have permission to enter into Syrian airspace. Now, they claim that they were trying to attack a military convoy of weapons that was headed for Hezbollah. But Hezbollah works with Iran and Russia and invited in by Syria to take out those Western-backed terrorists that's trying to overthrow the secular government of Syria. So they have a reason to be there. And this is, and perhaps what's going on here, since that coalition that I just named has been wiping out them terrorists, and I think they mentioned this yesterday, that really the Israelis that airstrike was meant to protect those terrorists. If Dave didn't say it, somebody else said it that I came across. Okay, that's about it for the stories. There's a whole lot more. It's just a few more. I'll share them all. And then we will go to Brother Bragg's as he will take over the rest of the program, as we both are sitting in for Brother Dave today on Thando Radio Show. Let me see. Next story. Pot of gold. Marijuana sales soar as beer drinkers make the switch. According to a survey of some 40,000 beer drinkers in America, the Cannabis Consumer Group has noted that 27% now either make pot their go-to high instead of beer, or would if the states in which they live legalize it. So again, whether or not you consume cannabis, which the creator made, or whether or not you consume beer, which is a man-made substance, which man created from substances from nature. I'm not going to act like there's anything wrong with alcohol. Anything can be bad for you if you abuse it. But it's just interesting. But this just goes to show you why the alcohol industry has been lobbying to keep cannabis illegal. Because some people would prefer not to be drunk and not be inebriated like that, and they rather consume cannabis and what have you. So, I believe in letting people consume whatever it is they want to consume, whether it's hurting them or not. That's their free will. I don't have, like Dave says, my free will stops where another person's begins. If they want to consume cannabis or alcohol, who am I to say that what they can and cannot do? As long as what they're doing is not interfering with what I'm doing. As long as them expressing their free will is not hindering me expressing my free will. To me, if there is no victim, there is no crime. Okay, we don't want people to become addicted to drugs. We don't want people to become alcoholics. But you tell me, how are you helping them by throwing them in jail or prison? How are you helping them by labeling them with a felony status to where then they can't even work? Okay? So people self-medicate in this racist, cannibalistic system. And so I don't see any difference from somebody medicating to deal with stress using cannabis. Then you going to a psychiatrist and they, got you doped up on a whole bunch of prescription drugs and what have you. So all I'm saying is before you start pointing the finger at what somebody else is using, what are you using? What are you using? Okay, some people use exercise to deal with stress, and that would be the most healthy way to deal with stress. But again, I'm not about dictating to other people what they do. All right, so next story. India's solar power dream turns silver lining for Chinese industry. The Indian government's decision to double imports of solar cells and modules from China over the last 2 years has turned out to be a lifeline for the Chinese solar industry, which was hit by low prices in the international market. Now is the time, if you're going to purchase some of these solar panels, and again, you could just buy a solar panel to just power certain devices in your house. You don't have to purchase them if you can't afford it for you to put your entire house on solar power. You can run televisions, computers, whatever off of solar power. And this is something I've been looking into if I ever get the resources to be able to purchase some of these solar power. But those prices could go up even higher, So if we're getting reports that they're kind of low right now, now's the time to pick up what you can in terms of solar energy. Because again, if the grid goes down, how are you going to be prepared? Are you going to be able to harness the abundant energy source of the sun to help you get through whatever it is you need to get through while the grid is down? So that's pretty interesting story. Z urges two-state Palestinian solution in talks with Israeli Prime Minister. President tells visiting Benjamin Netanyahu that he wants an independent Palestine at peace with his neighbor. This is a big deal. I actually was just sharing an article today about apartheid in Israel. Israel, the government of Israel practices racist apartheid just like the apartheid government of South Africa, okay? And the United States just appointed as their Israeli ambassador is a man who's making money off of taking Palestinian land and building illegal settlements on it. So that should tell you what you need to know about the Trump administration on this. But now you have a world power, China, jumping into this situation. All right, next story. China's drawing up rules to control overseas investments. China may publish rules this year on outbound investments by Chinese firms that will spell out the sectors in which investing is encouraged and those where it is restricted, state media reported. All right, that's the last story. We have about 15 minutes to the top of the hour where we will take our station identification break. If you have a question or comment as we get ready to turn it over to Brother Dave, give us a call at Brother Braggs, 866-510-9025. That's 866-510-9025. We do have a caller on the board. Someone wants to share a comment or ask a question. Brother Mel, is that you, brother? Go ahead with your question or comment.
Yes, sir, Brother Scotty. How you doing, man?
I'm doing as well as I can behind these enemy lines, Brother Mel. Yes,
sir. I was just asking about why is nobody talking about all of these? And I'm sure I wanted to, address this to Brother Braggs as well. But all of these missing girls coming up in D.C. The news is not saying nothing. Last week it was 7. Now it's up to 12 or 13. And I'm just wondering, I'm trying to wonder if I should correlate that towards, the months that's coming up. April and May is their, that's their killing season, literally. Mm-hmm. And I just was wondering, like, if you heard anything about it or.
Yes, I have. I was alerted by this by a social media post by Deshaun Farad. Sometimes you'll see him on News One with Roland Martin, but he had been posting about it, but he ain't provide no links. And so I was like, dude, can you provide us some sources to this information so that we can share it, And so since he ain't provide none, I started Googling the stuff myself. And so I did see some articles about it. And I'm not saying I don't have enough information to really give to answer your question, but I have heard about it. I did some research, but I really couldn't find anything that was presenting concrete evidence. I found one outlet in DC that said that it's business as usual, said that they do have, people coming up missing, but it's not anything above normal, which I found that statement right there to be troubling. Oh, now we didn't normalize black people going missing now. You know what I'm saying? So, that's all I know about the situation. And so, but to answer your question about why we not hearing from any of the major outlets or national media about it, we know the answer to that question, and we've been asking that question a long time ago. That's racism, white supremacy being practiced in the national news media. That's the answer right there.
Because I looked all day, man. I've been trying to find some concrete, some type of, news. I seen some in the DC news, but nothing specific, no details. I can't find anything, man. But
I did find the source.
And it's actually 64,000 black girls missing in the country as we speak. And,
I was just getting ready to say that, guys. You need to go to Black and Missing. This is a regular thing. This has been going on. Not only that, black girls, young men, us in particular. 300,000 of us go missing every year. It's not reported in the media. If you go to Black and Missing, it's a site. Go to that site. They talk about this every day. This is one of my pet peeves. This is the thing I tell all the young people around me when they're going out partying, not paying attention to their surroundings.
Right.
I hate to say, I don't want to say anything to make people paranoid, but you always got to watch your surroundings. There are things going on around us that you may not understand. I used to didn't even think this way, other than the I worked for a transportation company, and I used to live in New York, and I've seen a few crazy things. And so I believe things that other people won't believe.
Brother Braggs.
For instance, yes, sir.
My stepmother, who's married to my father, they retired from trucking, but they was like Team Davis. They was a family, a husband and wife team. And so, she told me that at least twice they tried to kidnap her out there on the road.
I used to go early in the morning to work. I was young then, and I was kind of little. I had people pull up to me in cars, but I'm a ghetto brother. I'm not ashamed to say that, man. I'm proud of where I came from. So when you approach me like that, I still carry a brick in my car, believe it or not, man. Just it's something I learned when I was a kid. So in my bag, I always carried a hand-sized rock. So and I always carry a knife. That's one of my military things. My sergeant told me all good soldiers always have a knife. Doesn't matter how big the knife is, if you just carry it, it keeps you prepared. You can do things with a knife. But anyway, young girls going out. If you go to Black and Missing, it's so many scenarios. I've been following Black and Missing for about 7 years. Young girl gets in her car, is only going to the store to grab something. Her car is found at a stop sign, door wide open, motor running, never to be seen again. Now, this scenario plays out over and over and over again. This is all over the United States. The mass media, the main media, never reports this. Never.
Right.
I tell everybody around me, all the women around me, I tell them, when you go out, pay attention. You know what? They got stuff that they can put on a card. If you touch that card, or they can blow it in your face. It's so powerful. Immediately, they can say things to you and control you. This stuff comes from South America. I have to dig into my paperwork to find that.
All right. Well, one last thing before I turn it over to you, Brother Braggs, I want to say about that. I'm glad you shared the source, Black and Missing. And I did find the original source. I can't recall the black woman's name, but she is the one who started these alerts on Twitter, and it went viral from there. And so, but Black and Missing, that is who I would go to find out if there is an unusual spike, in what's going on in missing black, women and children, or missing black people, period, in Washington, D.C. And I will like to share this tip that I like to share with everybody on that. And I tell my daughters this, you got people who will buy these kits to put blue lights and stuff on their cars and make it look like they the police. And I don't care if the car is a police car. If you get pulled over and it's in these rural areas that we live in, I tell my daughters, do not stop on these back roads. Do not stop. Right. You drive your butt to the nearest convenience store that's open 24/7 or any place where you see a lot of people, and then you pull over. Don't speed. Just go slow. Go the normal speed limit, but do not pull over unless you're in a highly visible area where other people can observe what happens. And Brother Braggs, I'm turning it over to you. We'll be going to our station identification break in about 8 minutes. But here's Brother Braggs.
All right. And on the tail of that, you can also put your flashes on and move slowly to a place where you can find, shelter, where people are, in a place where you can find security.
And call somebody, Brother Bragg. Call somebody. You got a cell phone. Tell them you're being pulled over.
Or if you really feel safe, go to the police station. But I don't really go to the police station.
Brother Mel, did you have anything before Brother Bragg starts with his program?
No, I'll chime in a little bit, but I do want to give you much accolades, brother. Scotty, man, you the best, man. You a soldier, man, and I really appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to let you know that. And Brother Bragg, good, peace, bro. Good to hear your voice as well.
Yes, sir. Peace to you too, sir.
Brother Braggs.
Yes, sir. Hey, now Dave asked me to do this, so I really didn't have a real basis. So I'm just going to run through some of my notes because I'm telling you, I'm a straight history buff. Now, we were talking earlier about the Moors, and this is something that I found out. Studying the Moors. The Moors were from West Africa. Now, the Moors did trade up and down the seacoast. and some Moors may have even been shipwrecked here and been in distant parts of North America. But to be a full-fledged Moor from West Africa, you'd have to be from West Africa, I would think. And people always telling me we in Morocco. How can we be in Morocco here in America? If we know for sure that Egypt runs all through here, how can this be Morocco? And we know that it runs through here because we know we got pyramids all over South America, North America, Brazil. Got more pyramids over here in North America than we got overseas. I'm just tying people to the land again because one thing that I keep seeing my people not wanting to stand on their own land. How you going to be a people if you don't come from anywhere? So everybody had a land, and you the copper-colored person of this land. That's all I'm saying. I'm gonna drive this point whenever I talk to you. I just want people to start paying attention like I didn't pay attention for a while, even to my people. But now that I have paid attention, one thing that I found to be very, very surprising, if you go to 1776, the year of supposed freedom, go to 1776 and see who America was in war with. And you're going to find that America was with war with the copper-colored people of the Americas, which was you and me. And it was very shocking to me when I got that information because all my people from the South. So because schools never taught us this, taught us that, we were slaves. But we weren't slaves. If you go to the South, check this out. Everywhere where the 13 colonies that wore that British flag were slave colonies. When you come to the southeastern United States, Indian country, remember this, the whole country, North America, was indigenous copper-colored people, like you and I, melanated people, before these people came here and took over under auspices of 1452 done deals to make us all enslaved forever. And that papal bull is still in full effect. Most people don't know about it, but once you pull it up, Google it and read it, it's going to really, inform you of some things. And then there's a whole bunch of other papal bulls. 325 A.D., the sea, the creation of Jesus Christ. But I don't even want to go that route. I don't even want to get into none of that. It's just information that I have. So what I always was concerned with was what was my position here in the United States. Because when I went to school, I started in the early 60s, and they taught us that slave narrative. And that's the indoctrination from the Rockefellers. When you really get into it, because these people have been allowed to write the narrative, they have miseducated all melanated people systematically around the world. So you can see how the spider web runs. So you can see how they control. They control and they rule by deception. One of the main things that I look at is that our young people are not connected because they've been taught that they are from Africa. So they looking across the water when they standing on their own land. And you got these pilgrims claiming, and you got these Mongolians claiming to be indigenous people, and you got these other $5 people claiming to be indigenous people, but they're not the indigenous people. It's you and me, but we've been miseducated, so we letting other people take our birthright. And that's all. The only reason I drive this point. And the other point I drive is the point that when you really look all the way into it, you're going to find out that all of these people, the copper-colored people, the African, they're all going to trace their lineage right back up into Egypt. That's what I found. Now, these Moors, that's why these Moors say that they are Moors, because they connected with the Egyptians. And remember that the Egyptians had a priesthood. The Moors practiced high science. That's what made them so great. And I take nothing from them. They were great. They brought science But now remember, though, this was all over the African continent, all the way down into America. Where did this stuff come from? I'm going to suggest this came from the ancient world, which would probably be Atlantis, Lemuria, places that they're telling you are fairy tale lands. These places actually existed. You know, I'm into birds, and I just find a few things just to be fascinating. I don't watch TV, so I get my jollies reading books and trying to find out what these people done. And that brings me to this. I just want to, Scotty, get ready to take the break. One more minute. I just want to run over this. This is Benjamin Franklin, the scientist, and this was his feelings about why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America, where we have so fair an opportunity by excluding all blacks and Thornies, or increasing the lovely white while increasing the lovely white and red. Then this is Thomas Jefferson, the president. I advance it therefore as suspicion only that the blacks, whether originally a distinct race or made distinct by time or circumstance, are inferior to the whites in endorsements of both body and mind. Now, this is Abraham Lincoln, the president. There's a physical difference between the whites and the black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together. While they do remain together, there must be the position of superior and inferior. And as far as I'm concerned, I favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race. Now, this is Henry Berry, House Representatives. We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which the light may enter the slave's mind. If we could extinguish the capacity to see light, our work will be complete. They would be on the level of the beast of the fields, and we then should be safe. So this is what I'm saying. These boys, their education system was supposed to wipe out all light. You was never supposed to find out who you are. To be totally confused without an anchor. And that commercial should be coming right now.
Yes, sir, Brother Braggs. You're listening to Thando Radio Show right here on Black Talk Radio Network. If you would like to ask Brother Braggs a question or share a comment with him and the audience, give us a call at 866-510-9025. That's 866-510-9025. Hit star to unmute yourself. I'll see you on the board, and I'll let Brother Braggs know. Just watch your background noise. We'll be right back on the other side of this break.
Okay.
Black Talk Radio since 2008, providing new black media for the masses.
We're back, Brother Braggs.
Alrighty. All right. Now, I'm going to jump right out of that, off those moors, and I'm going to get right here to King George. Now, this stuff really that I'm sharing with you guys right now, because, see, I was trying to find out. I was always curious about how these people are still controlling when we had the Revolutionary War, and then we had the War of 1776. But something happened in there. These boys flipped everything. Instead of us being a republic and a democracy, these boys took over. Now, when they took over, we got the king and queen of England still ruling this country. And I'm trying to, as I went through a bunch of things, for instance, here we go right here. King George's historic claim to ownership of the 13 American colonies called the Virginian colony. America was already inhabited by the red race, the actual descendants of Atlantis. a continent destroyed by around 900 BC during the worldwide continent shift. The Emperor of America was an Indian named Moitoi. In order for King George to lawfully lay claim to America, it was absolutely necessary for England to conquer the red race, the right of discovery, the ancient right of discovery. The representative of the Virginia Company colony negotiated a territorial treaty with eastern tribes of the red race, which King George used as his base authority to issue his bogus land grants. Factually, land grants could never have been obtained from the American Indian because the red race culture believed that no man can own the wind or the sun any more than he can own the land, which God had created for their use and benefit. And since the red race was more capable of repelling any amount of sin against them by any superior powers of that time, the king and the pope deduced that their demise would need to be accomplished by other means. The red race were gracious hosts and the lords and were willing to share what they had with the white immigrants, a disposition they would eventually regret for eternity. Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland, Tennessee, and 5 other states are located in Cherokee Indian Territory. Per Treaty of 1791, it is still valid and enforceable. The Royal African Company sent 249 ships to the West Indies, sending 60,000 Africans and Irish into the Americas and West Indies to infiltrate the new American government. A man by the name of, now check out this name I'm getting ready to say, to infiltrate the new American government, a man by the name of Alexander Levine. Once in America, Mr. Levine changed his name to Hamilton to obscure his Sabbatean Jewish ancestry and conceal the connection of his CFO of Rothschild banking empire.
Brother Braggs.
Alexander. Yes, sir.
I heard that name around here in North Carolina. That name Levine. There's some kind of building or something in Charlotte, but I've heard that name over the years. As you know, North Carolina was one of the 13 colonies, and that is a prominent name here in North Carolina. You know, when I say prominent, I mean, you know, attached to wealth or control or some kind of way. So that's first time.
Well, that's probably part of the founding people that, and their lineage goes back because they came over on those ships. See, look, you know what? I don't know if you might not be older than me. When I was young, they used to have these programs. They would always talk about the guilds in Europe. You couldn't work unless you were a part of the guilds. Now, they don't mention these guilds anymore. And I always used to ask, well, what happened to steal, to be a pickpocket, you couldn't steal if you wasn't in a guild. You feel what I'm saying? So if you was in a guild, it was a crime, but it was legal because you was in a guild. You was in the union for thieves. Now, if you was outside the union for thieves, then you were dealt with. So these people, when they came over here, they set up all kinds of things. The people that they sent, some people got Shanghai. Some people sold their own selves to get out of Europe because Europe was so bad. Remember, that's another thing I keep trying to make people remember. Europe was going through plague and disease and war, plague. So
famine.
Those people, and famine. And look, remember, they couldn't build boats because they didn't have trees. They burned all the wood trying to make hovels and whatnot because they lived in shacks. They lived really bad. If they took a bath once a year, that's where throw the baby out with the bath water come from. The whole family would use one tub of water. It might be 8 or 9 or 10. The baby was the last one to take the bath. So by the time the baby got to the bath water was so dirty you couldn't even see the baby. So that's where they throw the baby out with the bath water. And a whole bunch of stuff. A pot to piss and nowhere to put it. You know. Yeah.
Here's what I found. Why I heard that name. Why that name kind of triggered my memory. The Levine Museum of the New South, Levine Children's Hospital. Also the Levine campus. I think that might be on UNCC campus. I'm not sure. Just to let you know, go ahead and finish, Brother Bragg. But Mel wants to chime back in.
Okay, that's cool. Let me finish reading about this. Remember, this Alexander Levine is Alexander Hamilton. Okay, changed his name to Hamilton to obscure his Sabbatean Jewish ancestry and conceal any connection to the CFO of Rothschild banking empire. Alexander Hamilton secured employment as a personal secretary to General George Washington. And after Washington's election to office of President, Alexander Hamilton was appointed by President Washington as the first United States Secretary of the Treasury. He manipulated the value of colonial script that the Rothschild agents accumulated and drafted a proposed charter for the first 20 years. The United States Central Bank with a 20-year contract. President George Washington signed the Central Bank Charter into law and therein successfully entered the Rothschild banking empire into American commerce by the stroke of a pen. Alexander Hamilton was a traitor to the United States of America, the Republic. 30 of the this is the other part I wanted you guys to hear, because see, this stuff you don't want to hear unless you dig like I do. 30 of the 41 signers of the Declaration of Independence were loyal Americans, and the other 21 were traitors and were secretly loyal to King George. We had these 21 traitors as heroes. We logged these 21 traitors as heroes and patriots of the American Revolution because our government has taught about the other 30 loyalists who gave their last full measure of devotion in our cause of liberty. Don't you find it just a little suspicious after the White House in Philadelphia was burned and specific American loyalists and their entire families and murdered and burned in their homes in order to eliminate them as martyrs, the fighting stopped. The colonists returned to their trade, and the English military took up quarters in the New Amsterdam, New York, for the next 8 years before returning to England, and Continental Congress once again declared America the victor. Can anyone explain why Franklin died a bachelor and how the British military possessed the names and addresses of all 30 loyalist family members and their relatives with specific directions to the homes of all 30 patriots on the King's death list? Ironically, the other 31 founding fathers and their families were never harmed or threatened. Hey, go ahead, jump in there, Mel. Do your thing, baby.
I think he dropped off.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he's back. Brother Mel, go ahead, please. Brother Mel. Okay, Brother Mel, if you have a comment, just hit ***. We do have someone from the 720 area code. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Hi, I just wanted to find out what you were reading from.
Oh, I'm reading from my notes.
Your notes?
Yes, ma'am. I go into all kind of books. And see, one of my things was, and my thing still is, I know that there was a coup d'etat after the Civil War. And when I say a coup d'etat, people that look like you and me, indigenous people, were in power. We had the vote. We had the full vote. And we elected people that look like us into office in the Congress and the Senate. One day, they came to work with guns and took over. This is the beginning of the Democratic and Republican Party. Also the red shirts. See, these are things that they don't teach you in school. They don't teach this history. This is also the inception of the Klan. When the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, the red shirts was a paramilitary organization that was devoted to the Democratic Party. The Republic. I'm sorry.
I said they were terrorists. Ben Tillman.
They were terrorists.
Yeah, Ben
That's
Tillman.
Right. That's right.
They need to look up Ben Tillman. Actually, the book is called The Reconstruction of White Supremacy, and it talks about Ben Tillman in the red shirts.
Mm-hmm. That's how. And see, when you deal, that's why when you're dealing with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, that's why I never chime in on that patriotic nonsense and getting involved in politics. It's the same. It's one bird with two wings, and it's the same bird. It's all connected. Why is there not a third party? So it's really not a choice. It's an illusion of choice. That's my perception now. This is all for education. This is just what I think. But if you do your research, you'll come to some conclusion of your own.
720, did you have an additional question or comment? Ma'am? Okay. Mel, did you want to jump back in?
Okay, I have a star again, maybe. Hello?
Hello?
Yes,
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I just wanted to know if Brother Braggs would maybe has a book list that he would like to share with the audience.
Yes, ma'am. I got a mean book list. You talking to the wrong one.
I know you've got a lot of them. I'm just thinking if you could just share a little bit of, even the old ones, because I'm actually on a hunt for some, for some books, and the stuff that the notes that you have is very interesting.
I'm gonna grab my special book list back here that I get my esoteric book, so to speak, from. You know what I'm saying? These are the books. Now, this is what I tell young people when I tell them when they pick their books. I pick any kind of book, but I'm gonna tell you where I mainly learn most of my stuff from. I mainly learn most of my stuff from people that look like me. They put me on the trail. Then I went and used these other people's resources. But first, the people that look like me put me on my trail solidly. That's why I will never kick any of the Dr. Ben, J.A. Rogers, none of the old brothers who did their work, because these brothers, they paved the way for us. Now, I understand everybody's perspective or view can't be the same, so they were focused one way. I was focused another way. My focus has always been where I'm standing on. Because I was sent to Germany as a young man, and I went to Germany because I didn't have a job and I didn't have any economic fortitude, so I had to take a job with the military and go do what I needed to do, because that's how I was back in those days. Everybody used to ask you, what you going to do? And they meant that. What you going to do? What you going to do? You going to school? You going to college? Everybody wasn't meant for college. I didn't want my mother to waste money like that. Okay, here's the book list. Now, I'm going to give you guys the address to this place. This is where I get some hell of a books. These people will send you a book list. This place is called Adventures Unlimited. And I usually don't give a shout out, but she asked me, this book is Adventures Unlimited. The phone number is 815-253-6390. Now, you can call them and ask them for a book list, and they'll mail you a book list, and then you can make your purchases. I'm just going to read some books that I got circled here, because these are the kind of books I'm after right now. Technology of the Gods, Incredible Sciences of Ancients by David Hatcher Childress. Atlantis and the Power Systems of the Gods. Mercury Vortex, Generators and the Power Systems of Atlantis by David Hatcher Childress and Bill Condon. And I got all these books right here. Where my books I got it right. The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America, The Missing Skeletons, and the Great Smithsonian Cover-Up. Giants on Record, Americans Hidden History, Secrets in the Mounds, and the Smithsonian Files. That's by Jim Bahira and Hugh. The Lost Continent of Mu. This book right here, I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs out this book to you today. The Lost Continent of Mu, the original edition with the new introduction by James Churchwell, introduction by David Hatcher Childress. And what that book is, this first book was published in 1931. This book imparts the fascinating travel stories and theories of James Churchwell, a British colonel who was told by a rishi in India to go search for the lost continent in the Pacific. Churchwell was subsequently shown a secret library, retired from the military, and went in search of the lost continent. Starting in 1876, he journeyed to Tonga, Tahiti, Macedonia, and other remote areas of the Pacific locales that are difficult and costly to reach. Even today, he then traveled through Peru, Mexico, and the American Southwest in search of evidence of Mu. Churchwell became a millionaire as one of the inventors of stainless steel. This edition has an all-new introduction by David Hatcher Childress. Chapters include The Lost Continent, the land of man's ancient advent on Earth, records of the lost continent, Mu, the empire of the sun, North America, places among the ancient civilizations, Leavens, Mexican buried cities, the geographical history of Mu, tons more. And see, these kind of books, I slip into the University of Illinois library, and I get a lot of books from them, and they got some heck of a books. But when you ask them certain questions, they shut down on you. They won't give you no answers. But I usually know what I'm looking for anyway. I just ask questions just to be a little facetious, just to see if they're being honest with me. Especially when you start asking a question about the Moors, everybody get real tight up like they don't know what you're talking about. Here's another book, Atlantis in America, Navigators of the Ancient World by Ivan Zapp and George Erickson. Atlanta's Mothers of Empires. This was by Robert Stacy Judd.
So, Brother Braggs, can you give us that telephone number again for that book list?
Sir. Yes, sir, I sure will. Let me go back to the front page where I started at. Here you go. That number is, the name of it is Adventurers Unlimited. And the telephone number is 815-253-6390. And these guys got all kind of books. They got philosophy and religion, ancient science, technology of the gods. They got DVDs and movies. So esoterically speaking, all kind of stuff you won't find in a regular bookstore. Free energy and anti-gravity, conspiracy and history, esoteric studies, Holy Grail and Templar studies, conspiracies and histories, just all kind of great books.
We do got.
And my whole. Go ahead, bro.
No, I was just letting Mel know we see him on the board. Sis, did he answer your question? 720. Okay. Mel.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead with your question or comment, bro.
First, I want to clarify that when I called you a soldier, I meant warrior. I apologize about that, Brother Scotty.
Oh, no problem.
But Brother Braggs, I
Yes,
live in Oklahoma, man, and you know this is Oklahoma. I think the term is like red dirt or something like it's like attributed to everything out here is based on the native, the what you call so-called copper people, but what they call the Indian. And I mean it's in the state seal and everything, but they could control the Indian reservations. Are the only ones that have casinos. They control the casino. And you said something about the $5 Indian, which is basically that's the ones that bought they want way into the Dawes rolls or something like that, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so they paid $5 to say they was in. But man, look, the casinos is huge out here, bro. And when you see Indians, you never see like 5 of them. They always walk in. It might be 2 or 3 of them together. You never see 2 or 3 of them together, really. But they drunk. It's illegal.
Whenever you see them, know that they, on those reservations, know that the Mongoloids are claiming $9,000 a month, and they not the copper-colored people that are indigenous to this land.
Exactly.
And you and me are. So they identity theft, because that's a theft of identity. And see, this is
that's
again,
my point.
This is what miseducation does. Just
That's
think
my
about
point.
this. You could teach a small child anything you want. You can mind wipe him and tell him if nobody else is around to give him stimuli, you can raise him to be a little gorilla. He doesn't know. You know what I'm saying?
Isn't Oklahoma is where they sent the Cherokee from North Carolina and Georgia, right? When we talk about
North Carolina, Georgia,
the Trail of Tears. Now, I'm also, Brother Braggs and Brother Mel, share with you from my studies why I think a lot of them are Caucasian and look white. Buying their way onto the rolls is one thing, but as I study the history, because my great-great-grandmother's Cherokee, and we actually have a picture of her, and she don't look like them, okay? And so I started digging into that history, and there was a lot of wars here in North Carolina between the Cherokee and the settlers, and then how they settled. Yeah, how they settled a lot of that stuff and building treaties. There was a lot of intermarriage as well. And so that is how a lot of them became white, was through intermarriage with white colonists.
And it's like I've been studying my family history, and we Blackfoot and Cherokee, but it's a lot of Irish in that past as well.
Now check out when you start
point,
when you start saying that Irish, remember this. They enslaved the Irish out of Ireland. And remember the three realms from King James, the Black King? These Irish people were black people. You also had another group of people that was enslaved at the same time that came out of Africa, the Ashanti. So all of these people are covenant keepers. They're original Jews. See, this is the stuff that they'll never tell you. Now,
Wasn't St. Patrick black? Wasn't St. Patrick a black man?
No. St. Patrick was the murderer that killed the Twa people.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
For the Catholic Church. For the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
For the Catholic Church. Now, remember, when they doing that leprechaun thing, they talking about the Twa people. The Queen Scotia is a queen of Egypt. She's from Egypt. And those Twa people were from Egypt. Those people had advanced knowledge of metallurgy and sciences, just like the Dogon. The Druids followed their teaching. They murdered up the Druids and the Twa in Ireland and enslaved them. That's coming to Cromwell and these boys. Enslaved the people, sent them to America. Now, once they enslaved them, who became the real Jews? See, this is what I'm saying. Well, you don't know. Once you get wiped out, they take your identity. Look at all of the crest of Europe from the Moors. Once they destroyed the Moors, they took the family crest. They became the German Jews' family crest all through Germany. So once they wipe you out, they take your name. So if you don't know your history, understand what I'm saying. They will take your identity. Just like right now, you watching them assume hip-hop. You know you created hip-hop. They don't have no problem assuming like they created it for jazz music. They done wiped out soul music. Look what they do. All your arts that are positive, they wipe them out. Anything that they vinyl records, this blew my mind. They took vinyl records out of circulation because vinyl records and the needle was made out of metalin, and the needle touching the record made a frequency that put people with metalin in our pineal gland on a whole different level. So they wiped that all out. They had to do away with that with vinyl.
Before I mute myself, can I just interject 1 second, man? Because that trips me out about the Indian culture out here and how, I mean, it's like, man, you never every time you see a Indian, so-called Indian, they walk in, it's not good. But the casinos, they have their own right. They have their own different license plates out here, which represents what tribe they from.
They're a sovereign nation on their own sovereign land.
They on a sovereign reservation, but none of them look in. They white people, man. It's mostly white people. And
remember this, man. They stealing the land from beneath your feet because we don't know our history.
Okay.
Because we don't know our history.
Sorry, brother. Let me just get this out, man, because I got to get this out, brother Bragg. I got to get this out because I don't understand. Basically, it's the reason they gave them reparations was to say, I'm sorry, I apologize for what we've done to your people. But yet, and still, right in front of everybody, they still controlling it because it's them. It's them, and it's not just intermarrying. That $5 Indian is real. Them people really, yeah. But so why we never got? And I'm not asking for reparations. You don't have to apologize to me. I'll make it on my own. Believe me alone. But still, how do we? I mean, where's our? They still constantly come bombarding us constantly, man. They coming after us seriously.
Hey, bro, this is why we need to know our history. The Dawes list was how they did that. The reclassification by a dude named Walter Fleischer, Plesler. Plesler. This cat reclassified all the copper-colored indigenous people that look like you and me as Negro, colored, and black. This is why this status is important. When you call yourself black, you're dead under the law. Go in the Black Law Dictionary and look up black.
But Brother Braggs, I don't subscribe to their laws and their definitions. I don't look at them being the supreme
but when you
law.
Go to court, you in their ball game. So
I know that, but I don't put black. I've been in their courts as a plaintiff and as a defendant. I use my name. You don't use your racial classification. But I'm like Brother Mel. I mean, we could be on the Dawes rolls. My family, if I wanted to, through our Cherokee ancestors, but they practice white supremacy too, and they are white, and they mistreat the freed men that went out there with them, was on that Trail of Tears. So I don't, like I said, I ain't looking to unite with everyone, and I don't want to be on your Dawes rolls. And the way y'all was practicing slavery, this could be karma, the way y'all got mistreated. So that's just how I feel about it.
That's right.
Just remember, this country was based on slavery, always was. Let me finish when I started, too.
Just to let you know, when you finish, Brother Braggs, you got another call. So go ahead and finish. Just to let you know, you got another call.
All right. This goes back to what we're talking about right now. The Treaty of Paris, also known as the Treaty of Peace of Paris, was a concession that King George's son, Prince William, is the sovereign ruler of America. Every high-ranking Republican or Democrat, the Board of Directors on America under protection of the European Corporation titled Lupa Corp. The Lieber Code, as well as General Order Number 100, the Confiscation Act, the Geneva Convention, and the belligerent shall come to be treated as a combatant and as such subject to the Confiscation Act. That's also under the, let me see. Okay. This is back to these boys and their covert operation. Okay. Hey, Mel, you got something else to say before I go into this next piece about this Constitution and whatnot, man?
No, sir. Thank you. Peace.
Brother Braggs, you want to take this call, 423?
Yes, sir. Let me in there.
423, go ahead with your question or comment.
How you doing, Brother Scotty?
I'm doing okay.
Brother Mel. Can y'all hear me good?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I wanted to step in because what Mel was asking, that's something that I've been looking into. We always ask about our reparations. The reason we ain't getting reparations is because they've already given it to us, and like brother Braggs was saying, they stole our identity. So, I mean, it's kind of like, say you hit the lottery, but somebody made your ID, but put their picture on it. It's the same thing because Brother Scotty had just brought up, and I noticed that Brother Mel or Brother Braggs didn't add this in. The reason why they have all of these reservations and stuff, that was part of the Free Black Men and Indian Treaty in 1867, I believe. Right after they had supposedly released the slaves, and they sent them all on the Trail of Tears. For those of you who didn't catch what Brother Scotty said, is that they mistreated the freedmen too, meaning the freed black men, the newly freed slaves. So when they gave them that land, that was our reparations. That's why they don't ever talk about it no more. But we don't know nothing about that history for the most part. A lot of us don't know nothing about that. So and I feel the same way that both of y'all brothers feel, as far as like, I don't want to engage in them laws on your point, Scotty, but then on Brother Braggs, I understand his point too, because we still have to work around within their system. So when do we know how to combine these particular instances to where we want to just totally, at some points we want to totally just disconnect ourselves, but when we have to, we still have to know these laws that they operate by.
Exactly. You got to remember though, when you start talking about law is a different language than the language you and me are speaking right now. And that's why I'm saying when you step onto the court, you got to know what court and what game that you're playing. So when you step in there thinking that you know something, you jump in the court, you know nothing. You don't know what you're looking at in the court when you step in there. There's many things. It's funny, man. We walk around this planet. Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead. If you got something to say, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to add in real quick for you was mentioning about the how they label us up until about the early 80s when they had Jesse Jackson to come through and convince everybody to with the term black. You know, we had
African American.
We had the colored Negro. All of this. Here's a little homework. My granny is still living, but she won't show me her birth certificate. I done asked several times. I'm continuing to ask, but some research that I've done, what it let me know is what Brother Braggs is talking about. For those of us who have this ability to actually see their grandparents, or even your mothers, if you're a little older than I am, you can see their birth certificates, and they were still being, when they was born, they was having colored or Negro, which was that was the determining factor to let you know that you was an indigenous person from this land. But then they cut that off, and everybody was designated as the same thing. So that's some research that you can do.
Hey, also, did you know
that part of your?
Did you know though that they asking mothers though? The mothers have the ability to determine what's on the birth certificate now. I don't know if that's like in all the states, but I know it's like that here in North Carolina. So I was like, that's kind of crazy. So I could have a charcoal black baby. You mean to tell me I can put white as their racial classification under this system? But that's just how it is in North Carolina. But to y'all point, and we do got Brother Ross, we're going to come to you. I was talking to a sister, she's an attorney, and yesterday, and she was talking about reparations. And I just had this thought. I was like, okay, if you can document that your ancestor was enslaved either by a company or by a family, which if you go through the census records, and I do know they do hide a lot of that stuff, but if you go through the census records and you can document that, let's say J.P. Morgan held life insurance policy on your enslaved ancestor, or this particular family in this particular place enslaved your ancestor. I said, now, sis, instead of them waiting for an apology from the United States and reparations from the United States, I would like somebody to gather up that documentation and file an individual lawsuit in civil court, either suing the heirs of that family or that corporation. What do y'all think?
That's a great idea, Brother Scott.
I totally agree.
No doubt.
I totally agree.
And I'm actually going because I've been trying to do my little family tree, because I got people from Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, and also here in Tennessee where I'm at. So that is a great idea. And all it takes is for one person, they don't even have to win, but just to have all of their documentation and to be able to go so far up within the courts, what that'll let everybody else know that there's something here, because they're continuing to put it off. They want to pass it on to the next person, which means that it's some merit to whatever you bring into the court. And say if I done it and I got so far, and then you done it and you got a little bit further than me, and then Brother Bragg's done it and he end up getting paid. Well, see, once he get paid,
that sets a
look
precedent
at all of ours. Once we all get paid, now everybody that we know, we can shoot this same information, let them know every step to do it the correct way, and that'll also that'll bankrupt the whole system altogether, because all of us ain't gonna go to the same company, but it's so many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who will be attached to each individual company, and they'll have to disperse, because after they pay everybody else out, they'll have nothing to continue on with. But I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna listen to y'all brothers, man. I love hearing y'all talk.
All right, let's take our last station identification break, and we'll then come back. We got Brother Ross sitting patiently in queue. You're listening to Thando Radio Show right here on Black Talk Radio Network. Dave isn't with us today as he's preparing for an upcoming event, but we got Brother Braggs leading us in dialogue, and we're discussing history and the origins of people on this program. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Black Talk Radio Network is made possible in part with help from the Black Talk Media Project.
a North Carolina-based nonprofit engaged in the production and distribution of independent digital black media. Find out more by going to blacktalkradionetwork.com or blacktalkmediaproject.org and look for the menu tab, Crowdfunding Black Media. Black Talk Media Project, helping to provide you with new black media for the new millennium. You are tuned in to Black Talk Radio, new black media for the new millennium.
And welcome back. Let's go straight to the phone lines. Brother Ross been hanging on patiently. Brother Ross, you want to add something? You got a question for Brother Braggs?
I did have a couple of comments. Peace and love to you, Brother Braggs, Brother Jerry, Brother Mel, everybody who's calling and listening. I appreciate it. First, I wanted to ask, did you get my email, Scotty, regarding the permission for my son's music or whatever? I don't know if you
yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got it.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, perfect. Thanks. Now, first, I wanted to jump in on what you guys were just discussing in regards to the insurance, because like 2 weeks ago, I was coming home from work and I met this older black sister on the train, and she sat next to me and we had a great conversation, and she had mentioned to me that she's had to been maybe in her late 50s, early 60s, but she looked really good. And we were talking, and she said that her grandmother was a slave, and that when she was young and her grandmother passed away, that her mother went to bury her mom, and her grandmother, that is, which was her mother's mother, of course. But when she went to bury her, and the woman was with her, but she was young, and she said that the plantation owner had insurance on her grandmother, and that he actually gave her mother the funds from the insurance to bury her mother. And so, I mean, this is there. Fleet Bank, Bank of America, Lehman Brothers, all these people, all these companies have invested, stock in insurance slaves. So definitely, I think that's a brilliant idea in regards to what you elucidated, Scotty. I think that is a brilliant idea. And like what Jerry was saying, once one person gets through, then they just have to set the precedent as far as what everybody else should do as well once they have the proper proof in order to move forward with a lawsuit. And I've always said reparations makes no sense when they're still practicing racism, because they can give you reparations today, but they would have to give you reparations in perpetuity simply because they're still killing us and abusing us right now.
And so slavery too, Brother Ross.
Like every year. It's like, okay, reparations for the last year, reparations for what we did the year before. Like that's what's going to end up being. It's going to be permanent unless we change and destroy the system completely and rebuild it with something that's based on justice from the ground up. So that's one of my reasons for not even thinking about reparations. It's like until we get rid of y'all crackers in charge and we have, freedom based on the way that we as the victims of racism, white supremacy have seen it in our mind's eye, then there's no sense in moving forward anything reparations based. And like Mel said, I don't want nothing from these crackers. I just want them to leave us alone. Just leave us alone and let us be able to do our thing. But that's not them. That's not the way they function. In reference to the issue of women being able to set the race of the child, that is correct. Same thing happens in New York City. That's where I'm from too. My fellow Brooklynite out there, Brother Braggs. And you guys made me think of something, because if you ever seen Hidden Colors 4, the most recent one, James Smalls talks about the situation when he was working in the post office in New York, and he said that he was working with this attractive black Trinidadian female, and he said he was trying to kick game to her and whatnot, and she said, I don't date black men, and she said, I don't date black men because I'm white. So he said on her lunch break, she ran all the way home, got her documentation, her passport, all her papers that said everybody from Trinidad is considered a white person, and she showed it to him. And he said he was shocked, and he said he was more shocked by how she was behaving and the fact that she was not living in concert with reality. She was basically insane, because she's literally dark black female telling him that she's white because the white man told her she's white. And the same thing happened with an Egyptian immigrant back in the 90s. He came here from Egypt. They had him, he was a black Egyptian, kinky hair, dark-skinned Egyptian, and he said when he got here, every time he went for a job, he got the nigger treatment, because when they looked on his paperwork, it said he's Egyptian, he's white. So when he walked in with this Islamic name, I think his name was like Mustafa Hosni, Hosni, and he went, every job he went to basically practiced racism. Was like, basically, we don't hire niggas. And he sued the U.S. government for them to change the legalities of Egyptians being considered white automatically. And if I'm not mistaken, he won. And it was all due to the fact that he came here with the same impression that he was white based on what they put on his documentation, and everywhere he went, he got the nigger treatment. So to me, when they do that, it's just to really create more confusion and dissension amongst non-white, specifically black people, because when Massa tells you something, you go with what Massa says. So if Massa says I'm white like him, I'm going to go with that, even though no matter what that Trinidadian sister, said, no matter where she went, she was going to get the nigger treatment too, because she was a dark-skinned black person. So that is just something I think they've done just to create more confusion between us. And just to touch on the Moors, a lot of the information that the Moors had garnered, and they were brilliant people, but a lot of people don't know that before Champollion found the Rosetta Stone, it was the Moors who translated the hieroglyphs first. And that is where the vast majority of their information, scientific, medical, all of that came from what they garnered from the walls of Kemet before white people got their hands on it. And what they did was they documented that information in Arabic, which is why when you go to Mali and you go to Timbuktu, you have all of these manuscripts going back to the early 1000s BC and things like that, where they were basically copying what they translated off the walls into Arabic, and they created books out of that information. So they were basically the keepers of that information that was sacred. And when white people, through Champollion, discovered how to decipher the hieroglyphs for crackers, then what they did was they stole that information, doctored it, and then tried to take credit for it. So really the Moors actually carried that ancient information and they put it into Arabic, and that's how they were able to do a lot of what they did as far as civilizing Europe, and a lot of the other great things they did was built on the foundation of those people from Kemet. Thanks, and I'm gonna keep listening, and I'm gonna mute my line. Thank you both, but thank you all very much.
All righty. Hey, and remember those Moors too. I was saying too earlier, when those Moors were expelled from Europe, the first time they were expelled, they let them stay. The second time they were expelled, they put them in slavery. The first 50,000 they went to the islands in the Caribbean. The slavery that we understand is really not the way it really went down. The way slavery really went down, these Europeans came over here to America. You and me was walking around here chilling, doing our thing in our land, in our own land, and these people came with disease, pestilence, and we befriended them. We saved them at every turn. If you go find out when I say the game in the court, by us being educated that we always look to Africa. What other people in the world are standing on their own ground, looking across the water for their Savior? When you're standing on your Savior, the Creator gave us everything we need. It's standing under our feet. We're standing on it. It's beneath our feet. It's earth. We are the indigenous people of this land, not the Mongolian. And you got to remember, you got to look at these layers. Back to Mr. Flager. When he changed all those names, the name of the game is divide and conquer. So in my family, one of my relatives told me 2 weeks ago, Miss Garland, that in our family, Cherokee, but in our family, we had mulatto, Negro, in my family. And now, if you were the color of a paper bag, because that's where the paper bag comes from, that's the copper color people. So if you were the color of that paper bag, you couldn't pass. All this stuff is relevant. That's why I say you got to know what game you in. By Mr. Flager taking each person and changing their classification, which had no right to do.
Right.
But he was intent to make sure that the indigenous people, they're stealing your land, so you can't know who you are. You got to be confused and mixed up. So first thing you got to do is get your bearings and find out where you're at. So you either in Africa or America. Now I'm telling you that Egypt runs all through America, pyramids and everything. So you right here in Africa, right here in America, if you want to look at it that way. But your indigenous land is America. You are America, aboriginal to this ground right here. Not the Caucasian who screams that he's an American. You and I are American. And every time I see these guys beating their chest, I just get sick. And my brothers don't stand up and say, no, I am the American.
You know,
Y'all
Brother
keep thinking that
Braggs,
you
I
come from a
feel you
foreign
on
land
that.
across the water somewhere.
Yeah, and most
Go
of
ahead,
them,
man.
most of the people classified as white only came here in the 1800s. That's when
Pilgrims, man. Pilgrims.
No, I'm not talking about the Pilgrims. I'm talking about your Donald Trumps and his voters.
But they all pilgrims are outsiders. They foreigners.
Oh,
They're
that's
all
what you mean
outsiders.
by
They
the term
they got from
pilgrim.
this land.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Understood.
You know what's funny? What you're talking about too, Brother Scotty, is because when the immigrants came through Ellis Island, and a lot of people don't know this either. Everybody talks about Ellis Island like it's a special place because these crackers came through Ellis Island. What it was Ellis Island was designed for the poor white people.
Right.
All of the rich white people went to the Bronx. The rich white people lived in the Bronx, New York. That's where they were shuffled up there. They had their own everything in the Bronx. And it was named, actually the Bronx was named after one of those rich white men that funneled that way. All of the rich white people did not touch Ellis Island. It was only the poor white people that touched Ellis Island. And matter of fact, it was Dr. Joy Degree, who talked about on Ellis Island, there was a plaque. The only thing that referenced black people at all on Ellis Island was a small plaque placed in an out-of-the-way place in some corner that basically said that we were involuntary immigrants. That's what black people were. And I'll never forget her talking about that. That's how they described the slaves or the people that they enslaved was involuntary immigrants.
Ben Carson.
So that should tell you.
Ben Carson, is that where he getting his information from? He making them crazy statements. We got another call.
He is too smart to be so crazy. Sorry about that. He's too smart to be so ignorant.
Yeah. Area code 717. Thanks for calling in to Thando. We got Brother Braggs and myself. Please join in. Do you have a question or comment?
Hey, my brothers. It's always good to hear the voice of a friend. Look, I wanted to give you brothers a shout out. I had a busy day. I'm getting on the show very the last minute because basically I wanted to talk about tomorrow night's show. I don't know exactly what you did tonight, but I know it was informative, and anybody who listened got something from it. But I'm hearing a lot about the depression that people are going through, looking at Trump's trying to transform the policies here in the United States and how they're affecting people mentally. It's really surprising. Why? Because a lot of these people have begun to realize now they have to do for themselves. The sad part about it is that really, that's something we should have been doing all along. But the depression and the emotional disturbance really is heavy on me. So I thought that we'd do a show on understanding the importance of relaxing the mind and the body so that we could deal with the transitions to come. And believe me, not everything you hear is going to be as they say it's going to be, but the emotional shock of the first news impact is what I'm hearing most about. So I just wanted to put that out there real quick, Scotty. I hope you guys enjoyed this evening. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to catch the show, but I wanted to know anytime I miss it, I miss it. Peace, brothers.
All right, peace. And remember, we do have an archive, so there's always a podcast available for every show that we do on the Black Talk Radio Network. Brother Braggs?
Yes, sir. Oh, back to the status thing, man. I just want to make this point. I'm going to leave it alone after that. Why status correction? When you see your name, it's called Capitis Domino Maximum. It means stripped of name and heritage. Capitis Domino Maximus means a maximum of loss of status through the use of capitalization of letters. John Doe or John Doe, which is the false and clear misconstrued perception. That's what I'm saying. These words, man, and that's why in the game you got to study everything around you. Because everything is deception. Even when you hear NASA, they put it right in front of you. NASA means deception in Hebrew. So when you read enough stuff, you start seeing all kind of stuff, and stuff you just start being able to just see things. I myself, the only thing that I'm trying to do, I want to know exactly what happened to put us in the situation that we are to this point. I know that we have governments and churches that have gone against our people to keep us in the situation that we in. It's a martial effort. And the whole thing is to connect you from who you are, what you are, your spirituality.
Brother Braggs, to that point, I have a question that I ask. you just said, well, how did we get here? And again, you know, I'm grateful to Mr. Neely Fuller for putting this out there. And he said the point of studying history should not be to find out how great you once were, but where you effed up at, where you messed up. How did you get in this current predicament? So I was, you know, I love history, always been my favorite subject. Now, anybody that knows the real history of the American Revolution, then you know that quote unquote, black people are the one who won that war. Just like the Civil War, just like every war, it's always us saving the day for these crackers. So my question was, okay, after the American Revolution, and where you had these quote unquote black people come in and win the war, at that point, why they didn't turn their guns on them crackers like Franklin and Washington and Jefferson, and why they let them just do what they did? It should have been the first Civil War there.
It was a jack move, Scotty. That's what I'm trying to show you. It's a straight jack move. The boys hijacked the government. They took it over. They took it somewhere else. That's what Manly people.
So when they convened the first constitutional convention, they kept it secret to themselves and the people who helped win the doggone war.
A jack move.
Yeah.
A jack move to our democracy. Well, a jack move to our republic, because this was supposed to be a republic. But the founders were conspirators. They were traitors. That's why the 13 colonies, they all fly the British flag. Remember, the Union. When you get down south, the Confederacy flies the Union flag. Why are they flying the British flag? See, nobody talk. They talk that Dixie crap. See, that's that patriot, but they flying a British flag in America. Why they? That's what that flag is that they fly down there, the Confederacy. Why are they flying that flag in America? That's a British flag. And I'm just trying to let you see that these boys were traitors. They got them up as heroes. They betrayed the public trust. Washington, all them boys, Lincoln, they was all into it. They all was traitors. They took it over for themselves. They made themselves king instead of the queen and king of England and Portugal and Spain. They came here and set themselves up as kings in America.
Hey, Brother Bragg, I wanted to ask you, what was that word in Hebrew that you were talking about not too long ago?
NASA. NASA is deception.
How do you spell that?
NASA, NASA. You know, NASA for the United States.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's something else I want to get right quick. They always talk about Operation Paperclip. I got the Operation Paperclip book. I wanted to tell y'all who they brought here specifically, so you know who they brought here.
Now, the reason I asked... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Raz.
Oh, I was going to say that the reason I ask is because there's a very close friend of mine. We practically family, and he's from Ghana. He's a priest from Ghana. And he had told me that there's a word that they use in Ghana, and it's called Nasara, N-S-A-A-R-A-H, and it means enemies of Ra. And that was the name that they have for white people. So when you said that, it sounded so similar. I said, I need to ask what the term means, because you said Nasa means deception. Yeah. And in Ghana, he's a direct descendant of Kemet, and he said that the term they have for white people was Nasa, and it means enemy, those who are enemies of Ra. So I just thought that was interesting terminology. So I just wanted to touch on that. Thanks, my brother.
All right. Now this is the people that they brought over, from the Nazis brought over. Major General Dr. Walter Schirler was the Surgeon General of the Third Reich. The most sinister crime in which Schirler is involved is the introduction of intravenous lethal phenol injection. Explained War Criminal Crimes Investigation Dr. Leopold Alexander as a quick and convenient means of executing troublemakers. Paperclip contracts, U.S. Army Camp King, Germany, U.S. Air Force. Dr. Kurt Blom was Hitler's biological weapons maker and the Deputy Surgeon General of the Third Reich. He had nearly completed a bubonic plague weapon when the Red Army captured his research institute in Poland. Paperclip contract, U.S. Army, Camp King, Germany, NARA. Eric Traub was a biologist, microbiologist, and doctor of veterinary medicine. He weaponized rinderpest, cattle plague, at the request of Heinrich Himmler, the Rheinführer. SS traveling to Turkey to acquire a black market sample of the virus during the war. Paperclip contract, Naval Research Institute, Maryland, NARA. Major General Walter Dubanberger, was in charge of V weapons development for the Welch, arrested by British and held for nearly 2 years on war crime charges. Duranberger was released into U.S. custody with the warning that he was a menace of the First Order paperclip contract U.S. Air Force Services. Arthur Rudolph specialized in V weapons, assembly and served as operation director of slave labor facility in Nordhausen. In America, he would become known as the father of the Saturn rocket. I read Mein Kampf and agree with lots of things in it. Randolph chose journalist John Hoover in 1985. Hitler's first 6 years until the war started, were really marvelous. Paperclip, U.S. Army. These are all these people that they brought over in Paperclip. So all the things that are going on, when you hear me say Nazism, these are the people that are sitting back in these places like NASA, in these laboratories and whatnot, making these germs and whatnot. So no, and all I'm saying, know who's around you.
Brother Braggs.
I'm not going to even say that. Yes, sir.
Did you have any final comments as we get ready to wrap it up tonight?
Just peace, man.
All right. Okay. All right. So, Brother Dave will be back tomorrow. But tomorrow is Wise Wednesday with Brother Davis, so make sure you keep it locked right here. Remember, you can find out about all the programming on Black Talk Radio Network. It's not just this particular station that you're listening to now, but there are other independent stations that broadcast through the platform. So just subscribe via the RSS feed or put your email address in the little box for subscriptions, and that way you'll get alerted of upcoming programs. We want to thank Brother Braggs for leading us in this discussion today, as well as all the callers for their contributions. So this is it for Thando Radio Show on this March 21st.